I'm Harry Binswanger, the HB in HBTV. I'm a philosopher who advocates Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. Today is Valentine's Day. Our subject is love, romantic love. And I have two guests who have written a book on that topic and who are also advocates of Ayn Rand's philosophy and very familiar with it. I'm going to get to them after, because they're both psychologists and I'm a philosopher, and I wanted to make some philosophical comments on Ayn Rand's view of love. Ayn Rand held her view of love as an application of her general theory of emotions. She said that emotions were the mental and bodily form in which you experience your estimate, your automatized evaluation of things that you confront. You evaluate them in terms of for me or against me. You have positive emotions, emotions of attraction, joy, pride, and those are the things that are for you that you're evaluating. You also have negative emotions, emotions of aversion, of recoil, of disgust, in response of fear, in response to things that are against you or that you judge to be against you. Love is an emotion. Ayn Rand defines love in Introduction to Objectivist Epistemology, almost in passing as an example of how you define things and that everything has its own definition. She defines love, quote, as, quote, an emotion proceeding from the evaluation of an existent as a positive value and as a source of pleasure, close quote. Romantic love is the highest and most intense form of love. She held that romantic love was an expression of your implicit philosophy, not your stated philosophy necessarily, but the philosophy that's actually deeply embedded in your soul, the way you view life and man and the struggle for values. Let me quote from her article, Philosophy and Sense of Life. Love is a response to values. It is with a person's sense of life. That's the emotional expression of your implicit philosophy. It is with a person's sense of life that one falls in love, with that essential sum, that fundamental stand or way of facing existence, which is the essence of a personality. One falls in love with the embodiment of the values that formed a person's character, which are reflected in his widest goals or his smallest gestures, which create the style of his soul, the individual style of a unique, unrepeatable, irreplaceable consciousness. It is one's own sense of life that acts as the selector and responds to what it recognizes as one's own basic values in the person of another. It is not a matter of professed convictions, though these are not irrelevant. It is a matter of much more profound conscious and subconscious harmony. The short quote that is often stated is from the Fountainhead. To say I love you, one must know first how to say the I. That begins to get into the most interesting philosophical aspect of Ayn Rand's theory of love, that love is selfish. An unselfish love is a contradiction in terms. When you love somebody, it's because they mean something to you. You say, I can't live without you. You're essential to my happiness. Not, well, personally, you bore me, but you need a partner, so as a duty, I'm going to give you my love. You can't do that. You can't will love, and nobody would accept love on that terms. So there have been in history two concepts of love, one valid, one invalid. Eros, to use the Greek terms, eros, E-R-O-S, and agape, A-G-A-P-E. Eros is sexual love. Agape is Christian love. It's the love, supposed love, of granting forgiveness to someone. You forgive me, and I'll forgive you. It's a trade of unearned forgiveness for people who don't like themselves. Those two have been smeared together particularly by religion, as if romantic love were a trade of negatives, were a trade of needs, in the sense of lacks. I lack something and you lack something, so we have an affinity of mutual forgiveness and getting around this lack. Aristotelian love, because Aristotle is the father of this, is based on the idea, I love you because you're like me, and you give me the experience of seeing myself and my values in another person, and that's irreplaceable. So Ayn Rand's theory is very unique, not only in the selfishness aspect, but the idea of sex, the sexual component of romantic love. I've got a 3-word summary of it. Lust from admiration. There's a terrific scene in Atlas Shrugged where the hero Reardon sees Dagny Taggart, the heroine, for the first time, and we'll get into that later, but I want to introduce my two guests, who are eminent psychologists, Dr. Edwin A. Locke, who is a PhD from Cornell and a much celebrated authority on particularly the role of goal setting, of goals in motivation, which is since a goal and a value are pretty much the same thing in objectivism, it's very appropriate to this discussion. He's written many books, one, Goal Setting, A Theory of Motivation, a very interesting book on great creators in business called The Prime Movers, which I recommend to you, even though, I don't know, Ed, welcome. Would you call that psychology or history? Oh, you're muted. You have to unmute. Both of you, Alan, you two have to unmute.
You call it really biographical, just from things you read about them.
Mm-hmm. So it's more history than
looking at their
psychological theory.
What are the characteristics that made them successful? Insofar as you can tell from biographies and the like.
Okay, and Ellen Kenner is a PhD from Brown. So we have distinguished scholars here. They're both long time objectivists. I met Ed in 1967 in Virginia at that conference, the first conference. And Ellen, you go back almost as far. I guess maybe I met you in the late 70s. Not sure.
Right.
But you,
That could be. The first time I saw Ayn Rand was when she was on Donahue the second time. So that would be 80s. I think
oh, that would be 80s. Okay.
And we went to the
Recent.
conference.
That's recent. Yeah. So both of them have lectured on objectivism and on psychology. They've jointly written the book that I held up. I think I held up. I certainly referred to it. The Selfish Path to Romance: How to Love with Passion and Reason, which is a tour de force of every aspect of romantic love for the user. And I'm very happy to have both of them here to discuss love on this Valentine's Day. Either one of you want to comment on anything I said before I get into your book and questions and so forth?
We'll wait. I'm okay to wait.
You okay to wait?
Mhm.
Okay. What is the theme of this book? Let's start with Ed. What is the message?
Fundamental theme is you have to reject the standard belief that either it's narcissism, which is usually the man demanding obedience, or altruism, which means the wife serving the narcissist. And usually they go together. It's a lethal combination. He's the boss, she's the servant, and it doesn't work out very well because you feel contempt for her because all she is empty, and she feels depressed because she's nothing and gets nothing. So our view is that romantic love is mutual egoism.
Mutual egoism.
And
Yeah.
people don't like that because egoism is almost instinctively interpreted as narcissism. Doing whatever you want, whether it's legal or illegal, mean or criminal or normal or whatever. You just follow your whims, and that doesn't work at all in romance or anywhere else.
Yeah, it's self-destructive, so egoism cannot advocate self-destruction. It has to be self-enhancement. Yeah.
And altruism means you don't have any values. You're serving other people's values, so you're nothing. Ellen, you want to add on to that?
Yeah.
Oh,
Alan?
Yeah, no, I'd say that I've seen probably hundreds of couples in therapy, and sometimes, Ed, it's flipped. Sometimes it's the woman who's the boss. She's the narcissist, and you're going to do what I say, honey. And the guy is, following in her shadows. But typically, as you say, it's father knows best or husband knows best. So the theme of our book is that you never, ever want to betray yourself in a romantic partnership. You never want to live in the shadows of your own life. It is your life, and it is your partner's only life too. And you're getting together and you want mutual happiness. Like Ed has said in the book, and many times, egoism à deux. It's the selfishness for two. And we don't mean narcissistic, controlling, conniving, manipulative, my way or the highway. So the title is very, very controversial, The Selfish Path to Romance. What we really want to emphasize is that there are many ways you can lose yourself in romance. Don't do it. Try to give yourself a voice, and not a mean voice, but learn how to communicate well so you can lovingly deal with differences.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And the differences add to it, because if someone were exactly like you, it would be like looking in a mirror, in which would have a certain amount of interest for a while, but consciousness is a difference detector, as I put it. And the differences that exist highlight the similarities. That's what I've found.
And you have to figure out the common values so you can support each other's values. And they may not always work. It doesn't work for you, and it doesn't work for the romance. And you have to look at the differences. How important are they? How much do they undermine? If you'd like to do totally different things in life in every respect, then you're not a very good match. So it's a combo package of respecting and supporting the other's values, and they doing the same for you. And where there are differences, if it works, they're not fundamental things you work out. So both can get what you want. You don't have to always do the same things. You have to do a lot of things together. So net, it works out really well. And going back to Aristotle, as Harry mentioned, the visibility principle. You have to feel visible to one another sexually, intellectually, cognitively, and so if you feel invisible in every respect, then you don't have a good attachment to each other. So another self, but in the sense Harry mentioned, not identical, but you get the visibility from each other for your virtues and values.
Right.
For your virtues and values. Yeah.
And Harry, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please.
In a good romantic partnership, you're coming in with different family backgrounds, different rules that you have for friendships. You have different ways of managing your life. You have so many differences that you're bringing together. And one of the, if you can, to run a very good, smooth relationship, I like to look at a romantic partnership as a place where both partners grow. You learn from one another. As Ed said, you support each other's values and you learn to live with optional differences. I mean, differences that are not moral differences, not that your partner's cheating, lying, having affairs and whatnot. But, if there are small differences that don't bother you, you learn to live with them. Harris likes his coffee very, very hot, and he likes things very cold. And at first it was like, just drink the coffee any old way. But I love that he values his coffee that much. I see it differently now.
Yeah.
That he's being picky. He's being a passionate valuer, and he is that way about me too. So it's wonderful.
Yeah. You have to, that's part of having an eye. Is that it's really the essence of having an eye is you have strong personal values, not just the justice and truth and rationality, but things like ice skating or having your coffee really hot. Goes all the way down to little tiny details. And you can learn a lot from the other partner about how to cope with life too. That's not the reason why you're together, but vive la différence is my motto.
Supporting each other's careers. Not giving up yours, and they don't give up theirs. You support each other's careers, and you figure out how to merge as best you possibly can.
Mm-hmm. And you support each other in times of stress. Not that the other person is needy, but there are times when you hit some roadblocks. It could be a medical problem. It could be a problem, you get fired or something. And the other person really has your back because they love you and they know your character. So it's not, and that's not altruistic supporting where the other person's giving up. It's a benevolence. You love that person. You care about their welfare and you want them to pursue their goals.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's altruistic if they're no good and you're doing it out of pity. That's
everybody, when it comes to human relations, people drop their general knowledge. I mean, everybody knows this about pets that they love, right? They say, well, I'm, taking my dog to the vet, not because it's a duty, but because I love this dog and I want the dog to live. And I used to have a little poodle that I lived in an apartment in New York, and I walked the poodle twice a day. And I never thought, oh, God, I have to walk. It's, oh, she needs to go out now. Mm-hmm. And it was my pleasure to help her, feel better by doing her business outside. So people understand this in the simple terms, but then when it turns into morality and human relations, they adopt another viewpoint, which is which they've been taught and indoctrinated with, but which has no basis. So, what about answering some questions? Because we have officially 8 minutes left, and there were some interesting questions, at least one I know about.
I'd like to answer the first one, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
would you? So read it, if you would.
In romantic relationships, how does one process the process of trust work? Should you begin trusting the person innocent until proven guilty, or should you begin with distrust and with time gather evidence? My answer, and you two may disagree, neither of the above. I would approach a new relationship in neutral. This is a new person. I know nothing about them. Let's talk. See what you find out.
Don't you find
you learn to trust them, or you learn to distrust them?
Don't you find it a little off kilter that someone is approaching a romance with the question of trust? That would never occur to me. Do I trust this person? It sounds like maybe the person has been hurt in the past.
Exactly what I was thinking, Harry, that if you've just come out of a relationship where maybe your partner had an affair, or betrayed you in some other sense, or you're from your family of origin, then you might be focused on trust. You want to enjoy meeting new people. And as you collect more information about them by going out on dates or meeting their friends, meeting their families, or seeing them under stressful situations, you get to know about them. And you can see if they're trying to cheat the waitress out of $1, then you give some information, then that trust red flag definitely should go up. If they're lying to a friend and it's a lie, you might as well leave them then. Finish the date, let them take you home. You definitely want to tune into red flags, but you have a benevolent outlook towards a potential new partner, watchful, benevolent outlook, so you can enjoy the experience and learn about somebody's character.
You need to see them in different situations. What if a person is different with you and a totally different person with others? Role playing.
Right.
Very, very dubious. So you want to see them in lots of places, lots of different things to get the full picture. Because people can be inconsistent, as you know.
I should mention that both Ellen and Ed have clinical practice. They've actually, done a fair amount of work with patients. So they're speaking not theoretically as I am, but in terms of actual practice informed by theory.
Ellen, way more than I did.
Yes, and I always call them clients because patients pathologizes it. It makes people, when they would come, I even hated giving diagnoses, Harry, because I just would I would be on the lookout for values. What is this person's values? What do they want in life? Where are their unmet needs? What are the difficulties they're having? And it was more being an ally with them in discovery. And if they were a bad person, we would expose that too. Meaning if they were lying, cheating, stealing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they come to you, the couple, and you find out they're cheating right away.
Oh, that's
a big red flag, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see, Dylan, if there's another question in the chat, I don't see it. Just added one. What is a group and why is it invalid to build a society, etc., around? I think that's a question about collectivism. What's the difference between taking the unit of reality to be the individual and the group? One, it's free will. That's the essential difference. A group is a number of individuals with free will. It is not like a cell in the body of a cell on your body, which is subordinate to the whole. Each individual makes himself what he is and can change himself. He is not the pawn of the group dynamics. He is his own person. even if he surrenders to the group and becomes a herd animal, so to speak, that's his choice, a bad choice, a terrible choice, but he does it through his choice not to think. It doesn't happen automatically. So that's the difference between the theory of the organic theory of the state, as it's called, or collectivism, and recognizing that there are groups and there are societies, and it is valid to want to build, that is, to help people reach a rational society. I do that. I think all objectivists do that. We propagandize for a free society.
Harry?
Yeah.
Almost at the end of time, and I'm wondering if Ed and I could summarize just the points on romance that we got from Ayn Rand.
Sure. I'd be delighted.
Go ahead, Ellen.
Okay, so first I want to read a quote. This is what we have at the beginning of our book. It's one's own personal selfish happiness that one seeks, earns, and derives from love. And the points we got from Ayn Rand, there are 6 of them. One is the trader principle, that you trade value for value. You don't trade need or
Helplessness.
What, Ed?
Helplessness.
Helplessness.
Right. You're trading value for value. I'll rub your back, you'll rub my back in so many ways in romance. It's win-win. The second is what you talked about at the beginning, the harmony of reason and emotion. We got that from Ayn Rand, the need to introspect. And when you're meeting a new person or when you're in a relationship, you want to make sure that you're introspecting to make sure that you're not holding contradictions. This person's really nice, except for not really, but I don't want to look there. No, you want harmony. The third is that you can't go on automatic in a romantic relationship. Many long-term relationships just die because they don't make their relationships interesting and exciting. Your love is active and you want to do fun things. Like Harris and I we practiced the dance today, a foxtrot routine. Another one is psychological visibility. You've talked both Ed and Harry and have talked about that your romantic partner, you get psychological visibility and give it to your romantic partner. You see the best in them and they see the best in you and you grow together. The egoism of dirt, selfishness for 2. And the last part is that love is not mysterious. It's understandable. It has causes, and the causes are, you talked about sense of life, but your character, the person, that beautiful quote you had at the beginning when Hank Reardon sees Dagny and wants to make love to her right away. They haven't met yet, or they haven't. Yeah, and
the connection between your character and sex.
Yeah.
As opposed to, that's just a physical thing that guys do, doesn't mean anything. But if you want to make it really pleasurable, it's based on values.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a connection between mind and body.
And I'll just show our book again, The Selfish Path to Romance. We mean self-valuing for both partners, how to love with passion and reason.
Well, that's a good way to end because we've reached 4:31, and I just want to look. We've answered the questions that came in the super chat at least. So thank you very much for being here for this too short time, but I think we got the essentials out. I think it's Ayn Rand's view of love, which is the correct view, has been given a good hearing. So thank you very much, and I will be back next week. I think we're talking about the origin of property rights, how you come to own unowned material. So thank you
for having us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming, both you and Ellen, and thanks to the audience for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.